The unexpected meeting, the doors to the grand chamber creaked open slowly, and the diplomat stepped inside. The room was enormous, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch endlessly above. The walls were made of a strange black material that absorbed the light, giving the room an eerie, almost oppressive feel. At the far end of the chamber, sitting on a massive throne made of alien metal, was the queen. She was not what the diplomat had expected. Her form was tall and regal, her eyes glowing a soft, unnatural blue. The alien queen radiated power, and her presence filled the entire room. Her skin shimmered like a polished gemstone, changing colors as she shifted in her seat. Every inch of her was a perfect combination of beauty and danger. The diplomat's heart raced. They had been told stories, countless stories, of the alien queen's terrifying power. No human had ever come out of a meeting with her alive, or at least, no one had returned to tell the tale. The stories spoke of her cold, calculating nature, of how she ruled her people with an iron fist. And yet, here the diplomat was, walking straight toward her, with nothing but a small gift in hand. Their mission was simple: deliver the gift and establish a line of communication between their worlds. But as the diplomat's boots clicked on the cold, polished floor, they couldn't help but wonder if this had been a terrible mistake. Do not speak unless spoken to, the guards had warned before entering. The queen does not tolerate weakness, and she does not suffer fools. The diplomat felt the weight of those words with every step. They were about to face a being whose very existence defied everything humanity knew about power. The stories had warned them of her mind games, her manipulative ways. The alien queen was known to turn even the most skilled diplomats into mere pawns, broken under the weight of her intelligence and cruelty. But today, the diplomat was determined to succeed. They had trained for months, preparing for this one meeting. The small package they carried, wrapped carefully in cloth, was not much, but it was a symbol of humanity's hope, a sign of peace in a galaxy full of distrust. As they reached the throne, the diplomat stopped. The queen's gaze fixed on them, piercing and unblinking. For a moment, everything around them seemed to blur. The world outside the chamber, the other planets, the other stars, none of it mattered. It was just the two of them now. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. A diplomat could hear the soft thud of their own heartbeat in their ears. They swallowed nervously. Why was the queen so quiet? She hadn't spoken a word since the diplomat entered. "I bring a gift, Your Majesty," the diplomat finally said, their voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside them. They held out the package carefully, presenting it to the queen. The diplomat had been briefed on this part of the meeting. The gift was supposed to serve as an opening, a gesture of goodwill. It wasn't something that would change the course of history, but it was something that might at least get the conversation started. The queen's eyes narrowed as she looked at the gift, her expression unreadable. She did not move at first, simply staring at it with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The air between them crackled with tension. For a moment, it seemed as though she might reject the offering outright, dismissing it as nothing more than a human gesture. But then something strange happened. The queen's lips curled slightly at the corners, as though she was amused. It was the first sign of emotion the diplomat had seen since entering the chamber. "Do you truly think this trinket will win my favor?" The queen's voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried with it a weight of authority. Her words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. The diplomat hesitated. They had not expected this response. The queen's voice, despite being calm, sent a chill down their spine. There was something unsettling in the way she spoke, as though she were testing them, measuring them for some unknown reason. "I don't know what will win your favor, Your Majesty," the diplomat replied, trying to keep their composure. "But it is a symbol of our intentions. a symbol of peace. The Queen's eyes flickered to the gift again, her gaze unreadable. She extended a hand, long fingers brushing the package, then lifting it into the air. She turned it over in her hands, inspecting it closely. The diplomat held their breath, waiting. The silence stretched again, but this time the tension was different. It wasn't just the fear of the unknown. It was the anticipation of what might come next. Finally, the Queen spoke again, her voice low but clear. "This ... is an interesting choice," she said, as she held the gift up in front of her, inspecting it from all angles. The diplomat couldn't read her expression. Was it admiration? Disappointment? The Queen's features were almost entirely impassive. "Tell me," the Queen continued, her voice growing more curious, "what does your species expect to gain from this?" The diplomat felt a cold sweat beginning to form on the back of their neck. The Queen had not dismissed them. She hadn't rejected the gift. She was, in fact, intrigued. But why? What was her game? And what did this mean for the future of the humans in this galaxy? The diplomat could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them, knowing that everything was about to change. This wasn't just a meeting. It was the beginning of something far more complex, far more dangerous. And all they could do was stand there, waiting for the alien Queen's next move. The next chapter of their story was about to unfold, but the diplomat could not yet see the path ahead. The gift that could change everything. The room was still. The tension, so thick it felt as though the air itself had frozen. The Queen's long fingers held the small package, inspecting it like an item of unknown value. The diplomat stood motionless, watching her every movement, trying to discern the meaning behind her inscrutable gaze. There was something strange about the way she looked at the gift. It wasn't disdain or mockery. It was something else. Curiosity. Perhaps. For the first time, the diplomat felt like they were part of a game far beyond their understanding. But they couldn't turn back now. There was no retreat in diplomacy, not now. "Tell me, human." The Queen's voice broke the silence again, this time with a slight edge to it. "Why should I accept this offering? What does your species expect from me?" Her question echoed through the vast, hollow chamber. The diplomat had expected to explain the significance of the gift, to highlight the human desire for peace. But something about her words made them hesitate. It wasn't just a political exchange they were playing with something far more delicate. The diplomat spoke carefully, trying to read the alien Queen's reaction. "It's not about what we expect in return, Your Majesty. It's about a beginning, a chance to connect, to understand each other. We come in peace. We are not here for conquest or war." The Queen's eyes locked onto the diplomat's, her piercing gaze unwavering. For a moment, the diplomat thought they saw something in her eyes, something that flickered, but was gone before they could place it. Could it be ... doubt? Or was it something else? Peace? The Queen repeated the word softly, almost as if she were tasting it. "How quaint. You believe your species can offer me something as simple as peace?" Her tone shifted again, almost playful, but there was something darker beneath it. "And yet, your people have destroyed worlds. You have conquered and taken what you wanted. Why should I believe this trinket of yours is anything more than a feeble attempt to buy my favor?" The diplomat's heart raced, but they stood tall. The Queen's words cut deep, but they had come prepared for this. "We are not all the same," they said, their voice steady despite the knot forming in their stomach. "Some of us believe in a future where we don't take, but give, where we can live without fear and without conflict." The Queen's expression softened for just a split second, a fleeting glimpse of something unfamiliar. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced with that same unreadable mask. She tilted her head slightly, studying the diplomat. Her gaze was sharp, almost as if she were looking through them rather than at them. And this gift, she began slowly as she turned it over once more in her hands, is supposed to symbolize this idealistic future? The diplomat nodded, but inside they were starting to feel the weight of her words. The queen had shown no outward sign of violence, but every word she spoke was like a blade, cutting away at their confidence. There was no room for error here. Every moment counted, and every word had the potential to shift the balance of the entire galaxy. You humans are a curious species, the queen mused, her voice taking on a more contemplative tone. You are small and fragile, yet you seek to change the galaxy in your image. It is a bold ambition. For a moment, the diplomat dared to hope. Maybe they had started a conversation, a real one. Maybe there was a chance that their peaceful overture would lead to something greater, something beyond the endless wars and struggles they had known. But then, just as quickly, the queen's voice cut through the silence like a knife. But I wonder, human, do you truly understand what peace will cost you? The diplomat blinked, caught off guard. They hadn't expected such a question. The queen's eyes held a dark glint, her words wrapped in mystery. It wasn't just a question, it was a challenge. What do you mean? The diplomat asked, their voice laced with uncertainty. The queen's lips curled into a faint smile. Peace is a luxury that comes with a price. And not everyone in the galaxy desires peace as you do. There are those who would see your species fall. There are those who will not let you live without conflict. You cannot bargain for peace with a mere trinket. The diplomat felt a chill spread through them. This was no longer just a meeting to establish peace. It was a test, a game of strategy, of mind and will. And the queen had already begun to play. The silence returned to the chamber, and the diplomat realized that this gift, this small token of peace, had done more than just spark a conversation. It had opened the door to a far more complex and dangerous interaction. The queen's voice broke the silence once more, but this time it held a tone of finality. I will keep your gift, human, but know this, it is not enough to change the course of history. If you seek peace, you will have to prove it. And in doing so, you may discover that peace is not something you can easily give or receive. With that, the queen stood up, her towering figure casting a shadow over the diplomat. The moment of tension was palpable. There was no turning back now. The diplomat had made their move, and now the game had begun. The queen's words hung heavy in the air. What did she mean by prove it? And what would the diplomat be asked to do next? The diplomat turned away, feeling the weight of the galaxy bearing down on them. They had entered this chamber hoping for peace. But now, they weren't so sure what they had walked into. The queen's reaction. The chamber was eerily quiet after the queen's words. Her towering figure loomed over the diplomat, her eyes never leaving them. The weight of the moment pressed down, thickening the air between them. What had just happened? What did the queen mean by prove it? A diplomat had never anticipated this. They thought they had come here with a simple message peace, but now they found themselves tangled in a complex web of power, trust, and uncertainty. The queen's voice shattered the silence once again. Your gift was unexpected, she said, her tone cold yet strangely calm. It was not what I had expected from your species. The diplomat blinked, unsure how to respond. They had been prepared for rejection, even for mockery. But this was something different. The queen hadn't outright dismissed them. Instead, she had taken the gift and said, it was unexpected. I did not think you humans were capable of such gestures, she continued, her gaze still fixed firmly on the diplomat. You claim to seek peace, but actions speak louder than words. The diplomat's mind raced. Every second felt like an eternity. The queen's words were heavy with meaning, and they had no idea how to answer. Should they argue? Explain again that humanity only wanted peace? But something told them that wouldn't work. The Queen wasn't looking for words. She was looking for something much deeper. The diplomats steadied their breath, choosing their next words carefully. It is more than just a gift, Your Majesty. It is a message, a symbol of who we want to be, not just what we are. The Queen studied them for a long moment, her piercing blue eyes unblinking. A symbol of who you want to be, she repeated softly. How quaint. Her lips curled into a small smile, but there was no warmth in it. You humans do not realize how fragile you are. You think peace is a choice, that it is something you can simply ask for. But there is more to it than that, much more. The diplomat swallowed, feeling the sting of the Queen's words. How could they convince her that humanity was different, that they truly did seek peace, even if the universe had known them for war? I understand that peace cannot be given freely, the diplomat said slowly, their voice steady. But it is a step. We are willing to take the first step. The Queen's smile faded, and her eyes darkened. I think you misunderstand, she said, her voice suddenly turning sharp. Peace, true peace, comes at a cost. The universe does not grant such things lightly. There are forces beyond your comprehension that would rather see you destroyed than see you succeed in your foolish quest. A diplomat felt a cold shiver run down their spine. Was this a warning? A threat? Or was it something more, an invitation to something far larger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined? I don't understand, Your Majesty, the diplomat said, their voice trembling. Why do you say that? What forces are you speaking of? The Queen rose from her throne with a fluid, graceful movement. Her gaze remained fixed on the diplomat, her posture regal, almost predatory. You will learn soon enough, she said. But for now, know this. The gift you gave me was not a sign of peace. It was a test, and you have passed it ... for now. The diplomat's heart skipped a beat. A test? The Queen had been testing them all along? Passed it? The diplomat repeated, a mix of confusion and hope filling their voice. What does that mean? What happens next? The Queen did not answer immediately. Instead, she slowly circled the diplomat, her steps echoing through the chamber. The diplomat felt her presence all around them, and with every step, the tension in the room grew. I will grant you a chance, the Queen said finally, her voice low and deliberate. A chance to prove that humanity truly seeks peace. But understand this, your actions will speak louder than your words. You must show me that you are worthy of the galaxy's respect, and you must do it in a way that will test everything. You are. The diplomat's mind raced. What could she mean by prove it? How could they show their worthiness? And what exactly was at stake? The Queen's gaze softened slightly, though it was still filled with power and mystery. You will be given a task, she said. A task that will require everything you have. It will not be easy. It will not be safe. But it will show me what you are truly made of. The diplomat stood frozen, caught between fear and determination. A task? What kind of task could the Queen possibly have in mind? And when you complete it, the Queen continued, you will have proven that you are more than just a species of destruction. You will have shown that you have the strength to change. And if you succeed, ... Her voice trailed off, and for the first time, a flicker of something human, something almost sympathetic appeared in her eyes. Perhaps you will find the peace you seek. The diplomat didn't know what to say. They had been thrown into something far bigger than they could have imagined. One simple gift had opened a door, but now they stood at the threshold of something much darker and more complicated than they had ever expected. But they had no choice. They had come for peace, and they would do whatever it took to prove humanity's worth. Tell me what I must do, the diplomat said. their voice firm despite the fear gnawing at the edges of their mind. The Queen's smile returned, cold and knowing. "You will learn soon enough. For now, leave me with this gift. And remember, the next steps will be far more dangerous than you can imagine." And with that, the diplomat was left alone with the Queen's words hanging in the air, each one heavier than the last dot. A moment of connection. The diplomat's steps echoed through the empty halls as they walked away from the Queen's chamber. The gift had been accepted, but with it came the weight of a promise won they weren't entirely sure they could keep. The Queen had offered them a chance, but at what cost? What kind of test would she demand? The diplomat had no answers, only questions that spiraled out of control with every step. Outside the Queen's chamber, the corridor stretched endlessly before them, the sharp angles of the walls and the dark lighting pressing down on them. The silence was deafening, the only sound the soft shuffle of their boots on the metallic floor. They paused, feeling the coldness of the vast space around them. Then a voice, deep and powerful, echoed in their mind. It was the Queen. She hadn't spoken aloud, but her words resonated in the diplomat's thoughts, like a whisper in their very soul. "You think you understand peace, human," the Queen's voice said. Her tone as clear as if she were standing right next to them. "But you don't, not yet. You will soon enough, but it will take more than words." The diplomat paused, heart racing. Could this be another test? Or was the Queen simply toying with them, testing their resolve? But there was something in the Queen's voice, something that felt different. For the first time since entering the palace, the diplomat felt a flicker of something that wasn't just power or control. It was something human, something genuine. "Your people have a saying," the Queen continued, her voice growing softer, almost contemplative. "To give is to receive. You cannot take without offering something in return. But your species, you have yet to learn this." The diplomat's mind raced. Could the Queen be speaking of more than just the gift? Was she hinting at something larger, something that went beyond diplomacy and peace? The diplomat's instincts told them that this was a pivotal moment. Whatever the Queen had to offer, whatever she was trying to teach them, it was far more than they had expected. "Are you telling me this?" a diplomat asked quietly, unsure if the Queen could hear them directly, or if this was just another mental message. "You asked for peace," the Queen's voice answered, calm and patient. "But peace is never the first choice. The first choice is always war. It is easier, quicker. Peace, on the other hand, requires patience and sacrifice." The diplomat swallowed hard. Sacrifice. It was a word that carried weight. In all their years of training, they had been taught the theory of peace, of coexistence. But now, standing in the shadow of the alien Queen, they realized how little they truly understood. Queen's voice continued, as if she were reading their thoughts. "You think the galaxy is a simple place, that peace can be brokered with words and gestures. But it is not so. Even in my own empire, peace has been bought with blood. And still, there are those who fight for control, for power." The diplomats' thoughts swirled. How could they possibly hope to change this? How could they hope to offer peace when so much of the galaxy was built on conflict, on conquest? "Your species is naive," the Queen continued. "But perhaps there is hope. Perhaps you can learn to be more than your history has taught you. The question is, are you willing to pay the price?" The diplomat's heart sank. What price was she speaking of? What did she expect from them? The tension in the air was thick, and they could feel the weight of the Queen's words pressing down on them like a storm cloud, ready to burst. But then, just as quickly as it had come, the Queen's voice faded, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Diplomats stood in the dark corridor, alone with their thoughts. The weight of the task ahead had never felt more real. The Queen had offered them a chance, but that chance came with a price one they weren't sure they could pay. The galaxy, it seemed, had no place for peace. Or at least, not yet. The sound of footsteps approaching broke the silence. The diplomat turned to see a figure in the distance, their silhouette illuminated by the dim light. As the figure drew closer, the diplomat recognized the person immediately, an aide, someone who had been assigned to assist them during their stay. "Ambassador," the aide called out, walking quickly toward them. "We've received orders. The Queen. She has sent. For you." The diplomat's heart skipped a beat. Had the Queen changed her mind? Were they about to face another test? Or worse, had their efforts been in vain? Does she ... Does she want to speak with me again? The diplomat asked, trying to sound calm. The aide nodded. Yes, she has a task for you. Something ... urgent. The Queen believes it will help you understand what she was trying to convey. The diplomat's mind raced. What could the Queen want now? Whatever it was clear that this wasn't just a simple meeting. This was something far more complex. And it would test everything they had learned in their short time in the alien palace. "Lead the way," the diplomat said, their voice steady despite the fear clawing at their chest. The aide turned and began to walk down the hall, and the diplomat followed, their thoughts swirling with the Queen's cryptic words. Sacrifice? Blood. A price to be paid. What had they gotten themselves into? They didn't know yet, but they would soon find out. Secrets unveiled the diplomats. Footsteps echoed softly as they followed the aide down the winding corridors of the alien palace. The walls were adorned with intricate designs that shimmered in the low light, each pattern telling a story of a culture older and more complex than anything humanity could comprehend. The air was thick with tension, and each passing moment felt like another step toward an uncertain fate. The aide didn't speak, but the diplomat could feel the weight of their silence. The message was clear. Whatever the Queen had planned, it was not something to be taken lightly. The Queen's words still rang in the diplomat's mind. Sacrifice, blood, a price to be paid. What did she want from them? What test would they have to face next? Finally, the aide stopped in front of a large, ornate door. It was made of dark metal, inlaid with glowing blue lines that pulsed gently with light. The diplomat couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding as they stared. At the door. This was it. This was the moment they had been preparing for, even if they didn't fully understand what it meant. The aide turned to the diplomat, their expression serious. "The Queen has chosen you for a task," they said, their voice low. "It is one that could change the fate of your people or lead to their destruction." The diplomat nodded, a lump forming in their throat. They hadn't expected anything less. Every moment with the Queen had felt like a test, and now they were about to face the ultimate challenge. "What is it?" they asked, trying to keep their voice steady. The aide didn't answer immediately. Instead, they pressed a small glowing panel beside the door. There was a soft hum, and the door slid open silently, revealing a dimly lit room beyond. The diplomat could see the Queen's silhouette standing at the far end of the room, her form a stark contrast against the shadows. "Enter," the aide said, their tone final. "And remember, what happens here will shape the future of your species." The diplomats stepped into the room, their heart pounding in their chest. The door slid shut behind them with a soft hiss, leaving them alone with the Queen. The Queen's eyes glowed in the dim light as she turned to face them. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her gaze, something that felt like a challenge. She motioned for the diplomat to approach. "You are here because you sought peace," she said, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. "But peace is not a gift. It is something earned, something fought for, and you will have to fight for it, human." The diplomat swallowed hard, taking a step forward. "I'm ready," they said, though they didn't quite believe it. How could anyone be ready for what the Queen might demand? The Queen's lips curled into a slight smile. "Are you?" she asked, her voice laced with amusement. "Let us see if you truly are." She gestured to the far side of the room, where a large cylindrical device stood. It was unlike anything the diplomat had ever seen, sleek, metallic, and humming softly. With power. The Queen motioned toward it again, her eyes fixed on the diplomat. "This is a weapon," she said simply. "A weapon that can destroy entire worlds in an instant. It is the key to the Empire's survival, and it has never been used. Until now." The diplomat's breath caught in their throat. A weapon? What did the Queen want them to do with it? "I want you to destroy it," the Queen continued, her voice cold. "I want you to prove that your species is capable of sacrificing the very thing that has given you power. Destroy it, and you will have earned my respect." The diplomat stared at the device, heart racing. The weapon was a symbol of everything humanity had fought for: technology, power, dominance. But now, the Queen wanted them to destroy it? It seemed like an impossible task, one that would surely come with grave consequences. Destroy it? The diplomat repeated, their voice barely a whisper. But why? Why would you ask me to destroy your greatest weapon?" The Queen's gaze hardened. "Because peace cannot be built on power alone. It cannot be built on fear. You, human, are capable of understanding this. You have the potential to change the course of history, but only if you are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice." The diplomat's mind raced. This was a test, yes, but it was more than that. It was a moral challenge, a choice between the very principles humanity had held onto for centuries, and the possibility of something greater. If they destroyed the weapon, they would be rejecting the pursuit of power, the very thing that had driven humanity for so long. But could they truly do it? Could they destroy the weapon and prove to the Queen and to the galaxy that humanity was different? "Do it," the Queen urged, her voice insistent. "Prove to me that you are not like the others. Prove that you are capable of peace, even if it costs you everything." The diplomat felt the weight of her words sink deep into their chest. The room seemed to close in around them as they stared at the weapon. The power it represented was intoxicating, and the temptation to wield it, to use it to secure humanity's place in the galaxy, was almost overwhelming. But the diplomat knew what they had to do. They stepped toward the device, their hands trembling as they approached the control panel. The Queen watched them, her gaze never wavering. With a deep breath, the diplomat pressed the button that would deactivate the weapon. The room hummed as the energy within the device began to dissipate, and the once threatening machine fell silent. The diplomat stood there for a moment, heart pounding. Had they made the right choice? Was this the sacrifice the Queen had been talking about? The Queen's voice broke the silence. "You have passed the first test," she said, her tone quieter now. "But remember, human, peace comes with many costs. The path ahead is long, and the galaxy is not kind to those who seek it." The diplomat turned to face her, their resolve hardening. They had taken the first step, and now there was no turning back. The Queen's hidden agenda. The room was silent, the only sound the soft hum of energy dissipating from the deactivated weapon. The diplomat's heart still raced, their minds spinning with the enormity of their decision. They had made the sacrifice. They had rejected the temptation of power, and in doing so, they had proved their commitment to peace. But was it enough? The Queen's eyes never left the diplomat as they stood before her. She said nothing at first, watching the human with a piercing gaze that seemed to weigh them down, as if she were evaluating something far beyond what had just occurred. The silence stretched on, and the diplomat felt a mix of pride and dread. They had done what was asked, but there was a nagging feeling that something more was coming. something they hadn't yet grasped. The Queen stepped forward, her presence as commanding as ever. She circled the diplomat slowly, like a predator, examining its prey. "You have done as I asked," she said, her voice calm, almost clinical. "You have destroyed the weapon that has given my empire power for millennia. In doing so, you have shown me that humanity has the potential to change, to break free from the cycle of war and violence." The diplomats stood still, unsure of how to respond. They had no idea what to expect from the Queen now. Was this some form of approval? Or was it simply another game, another test? But the Queen continued, her voice hardening. "This test, this sacrifice is not the end. It was never meant to be. You see, there is something you still do not understand, human. Your species is capable of peace, yes, but only if you are willing to face the harsh realities of the galaxy." The diplomat's heart skipped a beat. The Queen's words hung in the air like a dark omen. What did she mean by the harsh realities? Of the galaxy? What do you mean? The diplomat asked cautiously, their voice steady despite the unease gnawing at them. "We've done what you asked. We've taken the first step. Isn't that enough?" The Queen's lips curled into a small smile, but it was a smile that sent a chill down the diplomat's spine. "No, human, it is not enough. You have only begun to understand the cost of peace. The galaxy is not a place where ideals can simply be accepted. It is a place where power dictates everything, where those who are weak are crushed, and those who are strong survive." The diplomat clenched their fists, trying to hide the fear rising in their chest. They had hoped for peace, for a chance to prove humanity's worth. But now, it seemed, the Queen was making it clear that peace would never come easily. "There are forces in this galaxy," the Queen continued, her voice growing darker, "that will not accept your kind's desire for peace. They will see your actions as weakness, as an invitation to destroy you. And I will not stand by and watch my empire crumble simply because you are naive enough to think that peace can be negotiated." The diplomat's mind was spinning. Were they being set up? Had they fallen into a trap, thinking they could bring about peace with one simple gesture? The Queen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You must understand, human, not everyone will accept your ideals. There are factions, old and powerful, who will fight to maintain their control over the galaxy. And they will not hesitate to crush you if they sense weakness." The diplomat felt their stomach tighten. "But what do you expect us to do?" they asked, their voice strained. "We can't just fight our way to peace." "That's not what we want." The Queen's eyes glinted with something dark, something almost predatory. "No, you will not fight your way to peace. Not yet. But there is a choice you must make, a choice that will shape the future of your people." The diplomat's breath caught. What choice? What was she asking of them now? "There is an ancient faction in the galaxy," the Queen continued, her voice calm yet filled with deadly intent. "They are known as the Purifiers. They believe that peace is a weakness, and they will stop at nothing to destroy anyone who seeks it. They are relentless, dangerous, and they have already set their sights on your species." The diplomats' mind raced. The Purifiers? They had never heard of them. What kind of faction would be so opposed to peace? The Queen's gaze turned cold as she continued. "You will face them, human. You will have to decide. Do you give up your ideals and fight for survival? Or do you stand firm in your belief that peace can be achieved, knowing that it will come at a terrible cost?" The diplomat's heart hammered in their chest. This was no longer just a political mission. It was a matter of survival. The Queen had led them to this moment, and now they had to choose fight or die. There was no middle ground. "What will you do?" the Queen asked, her voice soft but laced with a dangerous edge. "Will you fight to protect the peace you claim, to desire, or will you let the galaxy destroy you? The diplomats stood frozen, every fiber of their being torn between the two choices. To fight would mean abandoning everything they had believed in. To surrender would mean letting the purifiers and everyone else who opposed peace win. But then, in that moment, the diplomat realized something. The Queen wasn't offering them a simple choice between war and peace. She was offering them something far more complicated, an opportunity to change the course of history, for better or for worse. "We will fight," the diplomat said, their voice steady despite the fear twisting in their gut. "But we will fight for peace. We will prove that humanity can survive, that we can bring peace to this galaxy, even if it costs us everything." The Queen's lips curved into a smile that was both approving and ominous. "Very well, human. You have made your choice. But remember, peace is not a path for the faint of heart. The galaxy will test you, and in the end, only the strong will survive." The diplomat felt a surge of determination, but also a deep sense of foreboding. The path they had chosen was one of uncertainty and danger. The Queen's test was far from over. A new era. The Queen's words echoed in the diplomat's mind as they walked away from her chamber. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air. They had made their choice. They had chosen to fight, not for domination, not for power, but for peace. And yet, the galaxy was not a place that easily embraced peace. The purifiers, the Queen's ominous warning, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead all weighed on their shoulders. The diplomat's thoughts raced. How could humanity hope to stand against an ancient faction like the purifiers, one that rejected peace so vehemently? How could they possibly convince the galaxy, let alone the Queen herself, that peace was worth fighting for? But despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, there was something inside the diplomat that refused to back down. They had come here seeking peace, and they would leave with it or die trying. The aide who had led them to the Queen's chamber reappeared, his expression grim. "Ambassador," he said, nodding toward the hallway, "the Queen has given you the task. The fleet is ready for you." The diplomat's pulse quickened. The fleet? Was it time already? Were they truly ready to face the purifiers? The thought of battle was terrifying, but they knew there was no turning back now. If they were to stand any chance at peace, they would have to prove that humanity had the strength to survive, even when faced with the deadliest of enemies. They followed the aide through the maze of corridors, their minds still reeling from the Queen's words. A diplomat had expected some kind of diplomatic mission, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't about negotiating or convincing. This was about survival. The purifiers would never accept peace from humanity. But that didn't mean humanity couldn't change the galaxy's fate. At last, they arrived at the command center. The room was bustling with activity, filled with officers, engineers, and strategists all working to prepare for what was to come. Maps of the galaxy were displayed on large holoscreens, showing the movement of fleets, the positions of key planets, and the dark regions where the purifiers were rumored to be hiding. The sense of urgency in the room was palpable. The diplomats stepped to the center, facing the officers and commanders. They took a deep breath, gathering their thoughts. The weight of the moment was overwhelming, but they had no choice but to speak with clarity and confidence. "Listen to me," the diplomat began, their voice strong despite the uncertainty gnawing at them. "We are not here to fight for domination. We are not here to fight for revenge. We are here because we believe in something greater. We believe in peace, even if it means standing against those who would see us destroyed. The purifiers are coming for us, and we will stand our ground." The officers and commanders exchanged glances, some with doubt in their eyes, others with grim determination. The diplomat could see it, the fear, the uncertainty, but they also saw the flicker of something else. Hope. It was faint, But it was there. They had made their choice, and it was time for humanity to prove that they could stand together, no matter the cost. The diplomat turned toward the star map, pointing to a system on the screen, the closest purifier base. It was in a dark region of the galaxy, far from the light of the core worlds. The diplomat knew it was a risky move, but they also knew it was their only chance. If they could strike first, show the galaxy that they were not helpless, it might just give them the advantage. "We strike here," the diplomat said, their finger tracing the map. "We don't wait for them to come to us. We show the galaxy that humanity is willing to fight for what is right, that we are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice if it means protecting peace. We strike now, before they can gather their full force." There was a pause, and then the room erupted in activity. Officers moved to their stations, orders were given, and the fleet began to mobilize. The diplomat watched, feeling a strange mix of pride and fear. They had taken the first step toward peace, but now it was time to see if humanity could survive. The cost. As the diplomat turned to leave the command center, they were stopped by one of the officers. "Ambassador," the officer said, "we have one question. What do we do if we fail?" The diplomat turned back to the officer, their gaze steady. "We don't fail," they said simply. "We can't afford to." With that, they walked toward the waiting ship, their heart pounding in their chest. The fleet was ready. The purifiers would come for them, but humanity would not back down. They would fight for peace. They would fight for the future. And so, the battle began. The ships surged into the vast expanse of space, their engines burning bright against the darkness. The diplomats stood at the helm, their mind focused on the task ahead. They had made their choice, and now there was no turning back. In the cold void of space, humanity would either prove its worth or be crushed under the weight of its own ideals. The galaxy would watch, and the fate of their species would be decided. But one thing was certain. Humanity would no longer be weak. They had chosen their path, and they would fight for peace, no matter the cost. This final part wraps up the story, leaving the diplomat and humanity on the verge of war, but resolute in their commitment to peace. It sets up a powerful conclusion. With the stakes higher than ever, let me know if you need any adjustments or additions. Ask ChatGPT